Said she'd heard there's a hurricane on the way, and don't worry if you're watching, there isn't, said Michael.
Yes.
We'll be playing that a little bit later on. Actually, what did happen that day?
Thank you. Well, what I always say is if the forecast is right, it's my forecast.
Yeah.
And if the forecast is wrong, it's somebody else's forecast.
Yeah.
And actually, the truth is, it was Bill Giles that was on that afternoon and evening. He retired, collected an OBE, and has kept quiet about it. So there.
So you didn't say that then?
I said that on an earlier occasion, but it was referring to Florida, but, you know, never mind. Never mind. That's the sort of chart it was on the day, horrendous. We'll look, though, at the English picture, the UK picture, in a second.
Good morning. Children shouldn't begin formal learning until they're 6. That's the conclusion of the biggest inquiry into primary education in England for more than 40 years. It's published today. Lucy Watson is at a primary school in West London for us. Lucy.
Good morning, Helen. Well, yes, the Cambridge Primary Review, which took 3 years to compile, suggests that primary schools in this country are brought in line with those across the rest of Europe. That is, children start their formal teaching at the age of 6 and not 5. And that is because they suggest that it can be educationally counterproductive for them to start that early at 5. Now, Dame Gillian Pugh, who chaired the review, can explain to us why it's better for children to start learning later.
Often children in reception class, particularly quite young children, find themselves under the sort of pressures of the curriculum that's available for older children, perhaps being asked to sit quietly and to do things that are not quite right in terms of their development.
Now, as well as the starting age of children being discussed, they also suggested that there needs to be a way that we change the way inspectors assess schools, and also the way we test children needs to be changed, because too much pressure on targets and performance tables can make children anxious, which isn't good for their development. But overall, it's a good report for primary schools. They say they do it with a good heart, they're doing a good job, but there's room for improvement.
Lucy, thanks very much.
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning. Actually, I wrote a book on the subject. It was called Michael Fish's Guide to Hurricane Forecasting, and inside just completely blank pages. This was the chart as it was on the day 22 years ago. This was just after the peak of the storm. You look at all those isobars across the south of the country. They were even stronger 2 or 3 hours earlier. We had winds, of course, of up to and over 100 miles an hour. But things are very different today. Rather than a vicious area of low pressure, we've actually got a large area of high pressure. And of course, high pressure means things will be fine and settled and pretty quiet. That's the way the day is starting.